Some breaking news to bring you from the world of politics. The coalition are officially back together. Just a week after they parted ways, the Liberal leader, Susan Lee, and Nationals leader, David Littleproud, have reached a final agreement to reunite after the pair split over a dispute over 4 key policies. So the coalition reuniting after they agreed today. Let's bring in our political reporter, Pablo Vinales, who joins us from Parliament House. A fairly short split, reconciliation. What have they agreed? Do we know yet?
Yeah, Lorna, good morning. Well, a number of sources have confirmed to the ABC that the Nationals and the coalition have agreed to a new coalition agreement. As you mentioned, this comes just a week after the parties split sensationally last week after they struggled to reach consensus. We know that the Nationals were pushing a number of policy demands, 4 key policy demands on things like nuclear and divestiture laws in the supermarket sector. They were initially sticking points between the Liberals and the Nationals. Now, late last week, the 2 parties, the Liberal leader Susan Lee and David Littleproud, began to resume those talks to try and reach a new coalition agreement after the parties agreed that the Liberal Party would support these 4 policy demands in principle. So we are just getting word that that agreement has now been reached. Sources telling the ABC that front bench positions are being allocated and that we can expect a press conference later this morning confirming this agreement. So we'll be able to perhaps get some more detail around what is in this new coalition agreement. As we mentioned, just a week since that sensational split. In terms of what is in the agreement itself, there won't be, we're not sure what exactly we can see from that, given that generally the agreements are secret, but we have known some details in the last week because of the fact of this split that has been played out publicly. Generally, these agreements that are struck between leaders when there's a change of an election or if there's a change in leadership are secret, but because of what's unfolded over the last week, we know that there are those issues around the policy areas that the Nationals had concerns with, and this sticking point between Liberal leader Susan Lee and David Littleproud on cabinet solidarity. Susan Lee saying that that was an issue, the Nationals saying it wasn't an issue. So we'll see if we get any more clarity around that and whether we will get an announcement on the issue or on the shadow front bench, which we can expect will follow from this agreement being struck. Now, we have also this morning heard from a backbencher, a Queensland backbencher, Colin Boyce, who has been scathing of his own leader, David Littleproud. He represents the seat of Flynn in Queensland, and he this morning told the 9 newspapers that he was 100% disappointed and furious, accusing David Littleproud of misleading the party room over that split. He said, "I can't support a man who misleads the party room over the demand to end cabinet solidarity." So that is obviously another factor that has come into this. This has put a lot of pressure on David Littleproud's leadership within his own party. We heard from Bridget McKenzie earlier this morning defending Mr Littleproud.
Couldn't give a guarantee on, and obviously the 2 leaders are now working their way through those negotiations. I note in other reports there are many Liberal MPs who want to give us gratuitous advice about how to run our party room, and I'm happy to give them membership forms if they'd like to join it, but a coalition works best when everybody respects the independence of both parties.
It's interesting, isn't it, Pablo? I mean, so many people have, within politics, have had their say on this coalition split, some very high-profile ones having their say, and I guess that they were almost forced back into talking to each other by the discontent that there was. But will there be a post-mortem, if you like, of who blinked first?
Yeah, well, you can certainly expect, I think, the recriminations to play out, despite the fact an agreement has been struck. Clearly, there is still discontent within both parties. Liberals have been perhaps a little bit more muted in some of their concerns. Last week, when they did agree to some of those policy principles, they said that they needed to be, quote, the adults in the room, that they needed to suck it up, and that they would go ahead and agree to these policy demands that the Nationals were putting forward in principle, but not necessarily endorsing some of those details. So, for example, on the issue of nuclear power, there is consensus that they can agree to this in principle by lifting the moratorium on nuclear power, not necessarily going back to the policy that was taken at the last election of state-funded nuclear power plants. Also on divestiture laws, we know that this is quite unpopular within the Liberal Party, and the agreement there is that this would be a last resort. So you can probably expect, I think, particularly on the National side, perhaps some outspoken backbenchers expressing their discontent at how this has played out. It will be interesting to see which shadow or which Nationals MPs are appointed to the shadow cabinet. They would have to be bound by by cabinet solidarity when that comes into effect. So obviously a lot to play out here. We're expecting to hear more details later this morning, Lorna.
And all the while, it's played into Labour's hands somewhat, hasn't it, Pablo? Because the Prime Minister's been touring the country. He's been on international visits, the first since he won a second term. And the Nats and the Liberals have been squabbling about these things. It's the constituents that will feel they're not being represented at this time.
That's right, and we haven't heard much from the government on this playing out for the opposition. In politics, I guess when your political opponent is suffering, is having this kind of disunity play out publicly, it's politically speaking in your best interest just to stay quiet, and that's what we've seen Labor do over the last couple of weeks, really allowing the opposition to display this disunity, express this discontent in the public arena. But it does show a stark contrast between the government and the Nationals and the Liberals at the moment. As you mentioned, the flooding in New South Wales, we've seen the Prime Minister, ministers there visiting some of those flood-affected areas, dealing with that disaster that has been unfolding. And we should, of course, mention that a number of the MPs, the Nationals MPs that are in some of those flood-affected areas are also in their electorates. But it does show that contrast that we can see between the government and the opposition at a time where, the government is continuing its role of governing. We are yet to return to Parliament. That will happen in July. So it does give Labor, I guess, that political advantage as the coalition clearly tries to deal with the consequences of this emphatic loss.